I used to believe that love was simple. You meet someone, you fall for them, you build a life together. You promise loyalty, and somehow, that feels like enough to keep things strong forever. I was naive, I see that now. Life, it has a cruel way of testing the things we believe to be unbreakable. When I met Emma, she wasn't the kind of woman who turned heads instantly. She was quiet, soft-spoken, the kind of person who made you feel seen when she looked at you. We met at a mutual friend's wedding, and I still remember the way she laughed when I spilled wine on my shirt trying to make a joke. That laugh stuck in my mind. It wasn't loud or fake, it was real, warm, the kind that stays with you. We started dating not long after that. I was already working as a financial consultant, long hours, busy days, but somehow she made me want to slow down. She used to wait for me after work, sitting in that small cafe near my office, reading a book, looking up every now and then just to smile when I arrived. I thought that smile was my home. 3 years later, we got married. My family loved her, especially my younger brother, Daniel. He was always the charming one, the life of the party, the guy who could make anyone laugh. He was my best friend before he was my brother. We grew up sharing everything, toys, secrets, even dreams. I trusted him more than anyone in the world. When he hugged me on my wedding day, he said, "You're the luckiest man alive." I believed him. At first, everything was perfect. We bought a small house near the lake, Emma planted flowers in the backyard, and I built her a swing under the old oak tree. On weekends, Daniel would come over for barbecues. He made Emma laugh, and I liked that. I wanted her to be happy, even when I couldn't always be around. But over time, something started to feel different. It wasn't obvious, not at first. Just small things. The way they talked, the way she'd light up when he arrived. I remember once, during dinner, I walked into the kitchen and heard them laughing at something. When I asked what was so funny, they just looked at each other and said, "Oh, it's nothing." It was nothing. That's what they said every time. But it didn't feel like nothing. I brushed it off. I didn't want to be that kind of man, paranoid, jealous. I told myself it was just my imagination. Emma loved me. Daniel was my brother. What could possibly go wrong between two people I trusted with my life? But the signs kept growing. One night, I came home earlier than usual. The lights were dim, and I saw shadows moving in the living room. For a second, my heart stopped, but when I walked in, I found Daniel sitting on the couch, helping Emma fix a shelf that had fallen. He smiled, calm as ever, and said, "Hey, man, you scared us." I laughed it off, but something inside me didn't sit right. I couldn't sleep that night. I watched Emma breathing beside me, peaceful, innocent, and yet my chest felt tight. I didn't want to doubt her. But once that seed of suspicion is planted, it grows, no matter how hard you try to ignore it. A few weeks later, things got worse. Emma became distant. Her hugs felt shorter, her eyes wandered. I'd talk to her about my day, and she'd nod absent-mindedly, as if she wasn't really there. One evening, I asked her if everything was okay. She smiled and said she was just tired. But her voice trembled in a way I had never heard before. Daniel, on the other hand, seemed more present than ever. He called often, visited almost every weekend, and even offered to help with things around the house. I told myself he was just being supportive. After all, he was my brother. He loved both of us. But deep down, I started to wonder, was that love beginning to cross a line? I still remember the night everything started to unravel. It was a Friday. Emma told me she was going out with some friends from work. I didn't think much of it at first. I decided to stay home, open a bottle of wine, and watch a movie. But then, around 10 p.m., Daniel called me. His voice sounded strange, almost rushed. He said, "Hey man, I'm just checking in. You good?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." "Why?" He hesitated. "Nothing. Just making sure." And hung up. Something about that call didn't sit right. Daniel never called me late at night, and his tone wasn't casual, it was guilty. I felt my stomach twist. I told myself to stop being crazy, but the thought wouldn't leave me. I checked Emma's location on my phone. She had once shared it with me for safety. It showed a neighborhood far from where her coworker supposedly lived. I stared at that blinking dot for what felt like hours. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. Finally, I grabbed my car keys and drove. When I arrived, I saw Daniel's car parked outside a small hotel. My hands started to shake. I wanted to believe it was a coincidence, some misunderstanding. I waited, hidden in the shadows. 10 minutes later, Emma came out, her hair messy, her jacket half-zipped, followed by Daniel. They were laughing. Laughing. I didn't confront them that night. I couldn't. I drove back home and sat in the dark until the sun came up. My whole world felt like it had cracked open. How do you even begin to process something like that? The two people who meant the most to me, betraying me together. It didn't feel real. I wanted to believe I was dreaming. When Emma came home the next morning, she kissed me on the cheek and said she'd had a great time with her friends. I just nodded. I didn't say a word. For days, I pretended everything was normal, waiting for the right moment to confront her. But every time I looked at her, my throat closed. I couldn't find the words. I didn't want to hear the truth, because once it's spoken, you can't unhear it. Then, one evening, fate forced the truth out. Daniel came to visit, like he always did. They thought I'd left for work, but I came home early. When I opened the door, they were sitting on the couch, her hand resting on his. The look on their faces when they saw me. I'll never forget it. It was like time froze. Daniel stood up immediately, his mouth opening and closing like he wanted to speak but couldn't. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Please," she whispered. "Let me explain." But I didn't want explanations. I wanted to scream, to break something, to ask why. Instead, I just said, "How long?" Neither of them answered. The silence was the only answer I needed. I walked out that night with nothing but my car keys. I drove until I couldn't anymore, parked near the lake, and sat there for hours. The reflection of the moon danced on the water, and I thought about all the memories we had built, every laugh, every kiss, every promise. It all felt meaningless now. The hardest part wasn't losing her. It was losing my brother. The one person I thought would never hurt me. We had survived everything together, our parents' fights, our struggles growing up, even the loss of our father. And yet, in the end, he was the one who buried the knife in my back. Days passed, then weeks. I didn't speak to either of them. Emma tried calling, texting, even showing up at my office. I ignored her. My mother called me one night, saying Daniel had confessed everything and that he was sorry. Sorry. As if that word could fix what he had done. But anger can only carry you so far before it starts to eat you alive. I started drinking more, sleeping less. I'd sit in that same cafe where Emma used to wait for me and stare at the empty chair. I didn't even know who I was anymore. Everything I had built, everything I believed in, gone. One night, I got a message from Emma. Just one sentence, "Please meet me one last time." I don't know why I agreed. Maybe I wanted closure. Maybe I wanted to hear her admit it to my face. Maybe I just wanted to stop feeling empty. We met at the lake, the same place where we used to go for picnics. She looked different. Tired, pale, eyes swollen from crying. "I never meant for it to happen," she said softly. "I was lonely, you were always working, and he was just there." I laughed, bitterly. "So it's my fault?" "No," she whispered. It's mine. I ruined everything. I wanted to hate her. God, I tried. But part of me still remembered the woman who once made me feel alive. That's the thing about love, it doesn't just disappear, even when it should. She reached out to touch my hand, but I pulled away. Don't, I said. You don't get to do that anymore. Tears streamed down her face. I'm sorry, she whispered again. I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept. Not peacefully, but deeply. Like my body finally accepted that it was over. But life wasn't done with me yet. Because the real pain came later, when Daniel showed up at my door. When I opened the door and saw him standing there, I froze. Daniel looked nothing like the man I remembered. His eyes were hollow, his face unshaven, his shoulders slumped as if the weight of his choices had finally crushed him. He didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, trembling slightly, like he was afraid I might slam the door in his face. And maybe I should have. But I didn't. Can we talk? He finally asked. His voice was rough, almost breaking. I stepped aside without a word. He walked in, looking around as if the house itself accused him. It was silent except for the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. He sat down on the couch, the same couch where I had found them together. I stayed standing. He ran a hand through his hair and said, I don't even know where to start. Try the truth, I said coldly. He nodded slowly, his eyes glistening. It started months ago. After your anniversary. She called me one night, she said you were working late again, and she just wanted someone to talk to. We started talking more often, and I don't know how it happened. One night, it just happened. He paused, breathing heavily. I swear to you, I never meant to hurt you. I hated myself every single day. I stared at him, trying to find the brother I once loved. But all I saw was a stranger. You didn't just hurt me, I said quietly. You destroyed the only two people I trusted. He covered his face with his hands, his shoulders shaking. I know. I know, man. I think about it every day. I lost you. I lost everything that mattered. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence was thick, the kind that makes your chest ache. I wanted to hate him, to scream, to throw him out. But instead, I just felt empty. You didn't lose me, I finally said. You threw me away. He looked up, tears streaming down his face. Please, tell me there's a way to fix this. I shook my head. There isn't. Some things, you don't fix. You just live with them. He nodded, defeated. He stood up, walked to the door, and turned back one last time. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be someone you could forgive. I didn't answer. He left quietly, and for the first time, I realized how final it all was. After that day, I decided to leave town. I sold the house, packed a single suitcase, and drove until the city disappeared behind me. I didn't have a plan, I just needed distance, space to breathe, space to remember who I was before all of this. I ended up in a small coastal town 3 hours away. It was quiet, peaceful, full of strangers who didn't know my story. I rented a small apartment above a bakery, started running along the beach every morning, and found a job at a local accounting firm. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave me something to hold on to, routine. At first, every face reminded me of Emma. Every laugh, every touch between couples walking by felt like a wound reopening. I avoided people. I went to work, came home, sat in silence. But life has a strange way of finding you again. One morning, while I was jogging by the shore, I tripped and fell, right in front of a woman walking her dog. She laughed, not mockingly, but kindly. She helped me up, brushed the sand off my arm, and said, "You should watch where you're going." Her name was Claire. She was a local artist, living alone, painting sunsets and selling them at a small gallery in town. She didn't ask about my past, and I didn't offer it. She just talked about small things, the weather, her dog, the sea. I didn't realize it at first, but she was helping me heal in ways words couldn't. Weeks turned into months. We started having coffee after my runs, then dinners, then long walks along the pier at night. With her, everything felt calm. Not the burning, consuming kind of love I'd known before, something gentler, safer. One evening, while watching the waves crash against the rocks, she asked, "Do you ever miss where you came from?" I thought about it. "Sometimes," I said. "But not the place, just the person I used to be." She smiled softly. "Then maybe it's time you find him again." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what she said. For so long, I'd been living like a ghost, haunted by betrayal, defined by loss. But maybe there was still something left of me worth saving. So I started writing again, something I used to love before life got complicated. I wrote about pain, about forgiveness, about the strange ways life breaks and rebuilds us. It was cathartic, like bleeding out all the poison I'd been carrying. And slowly, I began to feel lighter. One morning, I got a message from my mother. She said Daniel had moved away too, somewhere up north, and that he'd gotten married. To someone else. She said he'd been sober for almost a year, that he'd started volunteering at a youth center. "He's changed," she wrote. I didn't reply, but for the first time, I didn't feel anger. Just acceptance. I realized then that forgiveness isn't something you give for them, it's something you give for yourself. Holding on to hate only keeps you tied to what broke you. So one afternoon, I wrote him a letter. I didn't tell him I forgave him, not in words, at least. I just told him I hoped he was doing better, that he found peace. I didn't know if he'd ever write back, but it didn't matter. Sending it felt like letting go. A few weeks later, I received an envelope in return. Inside, a single line in his handwriting, "Thank you, brother." I sat there for a long time, staring at those words. And I cried, not out of sadness, but out of relief. It felt like the final page of a story I'd been trapped in for too long. Claire found me sitting there, holding the letter. She didn't ask questions. She just sat beside me and held my hand. The sound of the ocean filled the silence between us, and for the first time in years, it didn't feel heavy. Sometimes, I still think about Emma. Not with anger anymore, just a quiet kind of nostalgia. She was part of my life, part of who I became. And maybe, in her own broken way, she helped me see what love isn't, so I could finally recognize what love truly is. Months later, I stood on the pier watching the sunset, the sky painted in gold and crimson, and I realized something profound. Life doesn't owe us happy endings. It just gives us moments, moments that break us, moments that heal us, moments that teach us who we are. What we choose to do with them, that's what defines us. I looked at Claire, standing beside me, her hair catching the evening light. She smiled, and in that simple smile, I found peace. Not the kind that comes from forgetting, but the kind that comes from forgiving, myself, most of all. The past still lives in me, but it no longer controls me. I learned that pain can be a teacher, not a prison. That losing everything isn't the end, sometimes, it's the beginning of something far more real. If you had told me years ago that I would survive what happened, I would have laughed. But I did. I survived. And in surviving, I discovered something I never expected to find again, hope. Because the truth is, even after betrayal, even after heartbreak, life finds a way to bloom again, quietly, stubbornly, beautifully. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. Maybe you've been betrayed too, maybe you've lost someone you trusted. But I want you to know this, pain doesn't define you. You do. Healing takes time, and forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing peace over poison. If my story touched you, share your experience in the comments. Tell me what forgiveness means to you. And if you believe in second chances, not for others, but for yourself, subscribe, and stay a while. Sometimes, all we need is to know we're not alone.